Good evening, folks. This evening's topic D is intentional poverty. Now, this means that, let's say, for example, Aunt Sally has to go to a nursing home. Okay, so the social worker in the facility tells you that she has to spend down some of her money in order to qualify for Medicaid coverage for care. Okay, so this is where the intentional poverty comes in. So it's like an intentional spend down for someone to get in into a nursing home for care. Okay, so I'll explain that for you in tonight's D. So please join me for presentation D, intentional poverty or Medicaid spend down. Okay, the page is explaining that intentional poverty or Medicaid spend down is a planning strategy families sometimes use when long-term care costs are so high that a middle-class older adult will end up poor anyway. And the only program that will pay for nursing home or assisted living care is Medicaid. What the article is saying based on the surrounding page content. Most older adults will eventually need help with daily activities. The page notes that over half of people 65 plus will need help with bathing, dressing, eating, or similar tasks. And some research puts that number closer to 2/3. Very few people have long-term care insurance. Only 3 to 4% of Americans over 50 have a policy that covers extended care. That means most families are left with personal savings, unpaid family caregiving, or Medicaid, which is the only public program that pays for long-term custodial care. Medicare does not cover long-term care. The page emphasizes that Medicaid does not pay for ongoing nursing home or assisted living support, only short rehab stays. So families quickly face thousands of dollars per month in costs. Medicaid has strict income and asset limits. To qualify for Medicaid long-term care, a person must have very low income. And very few countable assets. Middle class older adults often don't qualify until they spend nearly everything. What intentional poverty spend down means in this context. The article explains that some elder care experts recommend a planned, transparent reduction of assets so that an older adult becomes eligible for Medicaid before all of their savings are wiped out by care costs. This is what the article calls intentional poverty. This does not mean hiding money or doing everything illegal. Instead, it means using assets on allowable expenses such as prepaying funeral costs, purchasing a burial plot, paying off debt, making home modifications for safety, paying for legitimate care expenses. These are all permitted ways to spend down assets so the person meets Medicaid's financial criteria. Why families consider this strategy. The article frames it this way. Long-term care can cost thousands per month. Without planning, a family may burn through savings anyway. A structured spend down can help the person qualify for Medicaid sooner, reducing the period of catastrophic out-of-pocket costs or out-of-pocket spending. In other words, if long-term care will impoverish someone regardless, it may be better to plan that process intentionally and legally. What the article is not saying, it is not encouraging fraud, hiding assets, or transferring money improperly, which triggers Medicaid penalties. It is describing a legal transparent strategy that elder care experts sometimes recommend for middle class families facing unaffordable care costs. Okay, here's the second part of C. A Medicaid spend down can help an older adult qualify for long-term care coverage. But the article makes it very clear that this is not something families should try to navigate on their own. What the article means by a Medicaid spend down. Spend down is a legal, structured process where in older adults assets are used on allowable expenses so they can meet Medicaid's strict financial limits for long-term care. The page emphasizes that Medicaid only covers nursing home or assisted living care for people with very low income and minimal assets. Middle class, older adults often don't qualify until they've spent nearly everything anyway. A spend down is a way to use remaining assets intentionally and transparently. For example, prepaying funeral costs, paying debts, or covering legitimate care expenses. The article frames this as an intentional poverty, not because families want to be poor, but because long-term care cost will rapidly impoverish many older adults regardless. Why it isn't a DIY strategy? The surrounding content repeatedly warns that Medicaid eligibility is complicated, technical, and easy to get wrong. Here's what makes it Here's what makes it risky to attempt on alone. 1. Strict income and asset rules. Most states cap assets around $2,000 for an individual, excluding primary home, one vehicle, and personal belongings. Income limits are also tight. The 5-year look back. Medicaid reviews 5 years of financial activity. Improper transfers like giving money to relatives to look poor on paper can trigger penalties or delays. 3. Many expenses count toward spend down, but only if documented correctly. The article lists examples such as nursing home bills. Hospital bills, clothing and personal items, mortgage and debt payments, but missteps can disqualify someone or delay coverage. State rules vary because Medicaid is jointly run by states and the federal government. Each state has different pathways and exemptions, e.g., New York's Access Income Program. 5. Mistakes can harm the person's estate. The article quotes an elder law advocate saying that DIY planning can create significant problems for the person's estate and delay access to needed care. The core message of the page: a Medicaid spend down can be a lifeline for middle class older adults facing unaffordable long term care, but it must be done carefully, legally, and with expert guidance. The article encourages families to work with elder care law attorneys, Medicaid specialists, state and local advocates, organizations like Justice in Aging or Kaiser Family Foundation. Okay, guys, that is your D for the night. I will try and jump on and do one more extra. Please give me time for a little break, and I'll be back on with E for you. Okay? Thanks. I'll see everybody in a bit for E. For now, Gator Wellness. Take care, folks.